In order to be able to use Crystal reports, you will need databases so that your Crystal reports can connect to those databases and extract the required data. Now, throughout this title, I use a number of database sources, and those are all available for you in the databases folder. There are two Excel files, that's these two here. One is in 2003 and backwards format, that's the version 8 there, XLS file, and one is in the latest version, which is 2007-2010 format, which has the XLSX. They both contain the same data, so it will just depend on which version of Excel you have running on your machine. We've done a similar thing with Access. We have sample.accdb, which is the latest version of Access, 2007 and 2010 format. Or we have sample 2003, which is the same data but in an older format. So again, that will depend on what version of Access you have on your machine, if at all. I have supplied the AdventureWorks data in Access format in the older format. Notice the MDB file there. But the AdventureWorks data is also in SQL Server. If you're thinking of using SQL Server, you can download SQL Server Express, which is free. The address for that is here. And it's microsoft.com/SQL Server/en/us/editions/express.aspx. And really, it's one of these two options here. Either the 32-bit version, if your operating system is 32-bit, or the 64-bit version, if your operating system is 64-bit. Now, the only operating system under Windows that is 64-bit is Windows 7, and you have to have chosen 64-bit when you install it. If you're not sure, I would attempt to go for the 32-bit, and at some point it will tell you if you need 64-bit. So this is free, so you can download the SQL Server and install it from here or from here. If you do decide to go down that route, or you may already have SQL Server Express on your machine, then you can make use of the AdventureWorks data in SQL Server format instead of in Access format. And it's an exe file, so it just simply requires you to double click the file. I'll give permission, and it will unzip the data, ready for you to then install it in SQL Server. Then we have the database installer. I accept the license terms, next. And you're effectively going to step through a wizard that will install the databases into your copy of SQL Server on your machine. Choose which ones you want. Now you'll see that they're ticked by default, ready to install, ready to install. Certainly the LT version is what you're after ready for this to work. So it's the AdventureWorks LT 2008 R2 and the AdventureWorks LT. And then install, and they will be installed in your SQL Server instance. If you have more than one instance, you need to choose from here. I've got a choice of two, but really it's the training one on this particular machine. Install, and the installation takes place. I'm actually going to cancel because they already have them installed. Are you sure you want to cancel? Yes. So the AdventureWorks SQL Server database is for your SQL Server. The other databases are file-based, so you can move them where you wish to have them on your machine. Sample.back is actually a backup of the SQL Server database that you will not require, but it's there just for an emergency. Now, one thing you will need to do is actually look at the next movie, which is about changing the data source for your working files. Because although I've provided all the working files, and there's lots of them to work with Crystal reports, all of those reports have been attached to the data stored on my machine, and you need to actually change the data source. It's a quick and painless process and can be done in 2 or 3 clicks, but you will need to go through that, and the best thing to do is to watch the next movie to find that out. So here we've covered the available databases, 2 versions of the same Excel, just really for different formats, 2 versions of the same Access, again for the different formats depending on your version, 1 version of the AdventureWorks in Access format, should you wish to use the AdventureWorks data and not have SQL Server. And then we have the self-installing SQL Server database, but you would need to have SQL Server Express already installed. And I've shown you the URL to get that. And that's microsoft.com/SQL Server/en/us/editions/express.aspx. Or you can do a Google search for SQL Server Express. So hopefully that sorts you out with the databases, and you've put them in the location you'd require them. You've installed the SQL Server ones if you're going to use the SQL Server ones. We'll then move on looking how you change the data source of the working files that you're given.